I gave him a job, money, and trust. He tried to destroy me in return, blind to the fact that I was his last lifeline. I helped my half-brother, who had no job, and gave him a generous salary and free cash. In return, he spent months making my life miserable and even tried to get me fired, completely clueless that he was burning his last bridge with me. Growing up, he was always the favorite, and honestly, I didn't mind. When my parents shredded my report card because it had both A's and B's, but then threw a celebration for Logan for scraping by with straight C's, I was genuinely happy for him. Even when I got chewed out for being too quiet or ungrateful during dinner while Logan was rewarded with extra dessert just for rinsing his plate, I still smiled and felt good for him. Because deep down, I figured all this favoritism would work in my favor eventually. And I also knew it was bound to drive a wedge between us sooner or later. Turns out I was right on both counts. Thanks to the insane pressure I put on myself to prove I was good enough, I graduated high school with honors while Logan didn't even make it through his junior year. I moved out the second I turned 19, paid my own rent, and started living on my own, while Logan was already dealing with legal trouble at just 18. My parents pretty much cut me off the moment I left, and I returned the favor. I never came home for the holidays or even called. The only contact I maintained was sending Logan $250 in cash every other month just so he wouldn't be entirely dependent on our parents. Beyond that, we didn't speak at all. All I really knew was that he had somehow landed a supervisor role at a local McDonald's. Honestly, I was totally fine keeping it that way. I didn't want any of them to know how well I was doing. I waited until I had a degree in hand, a nice car, my own condo, and a stable job before I even considered reaching out. I thought maybe, just maybe, this would finally earn their respect. Instead, I got a Thanksgiving that's now burned into my memory for all the wrong reasons. I showed up wearing a simple Old Navy outfit, holding a fat check and a job offer for Logan. My stepdad answered the door. I almost didn't recognize him, he looked so much older. My mom, on the other hand, had a face so frozen with Botox it barely moved. Surprisingly, they invited me in like everything was fine. But I wasn't about to let my guard down. And sure enough, the second we all sat down, me, Logan, my mom, and stepdad, their fake warmth started to crack. We began by sharing life updates. That's when I found out Logan had been fired from McDonald's after just a year and hadn't worked a single day since. I took that as the perfect opening to mention the job I had in mind for him. So I started explaining. I told him I worked at a bank and that we were hiring. "Oh wow. Look at me," he blurted out, mocking me. "I get paid to wear a suit and push buttons on a calculator." He cut me off mid-sentence and my parents couldn't stop laughing. I stared at him in disbelief. It had been nearly 9 years since we last saw each other. Surely he hadn't stayed the same immature little brat? I shrugged it off, hoping it was just a bad joke, and tried to press on. But every time I opened my mouth, he'd pull faces or mutter "desk monkey" under his breath. Eventually, I let out a sigh, and that's when it hit me. I saw Logan for who he really was. A complete deadbeat. So I dropped the idea of the job and just handed him the $17,000 check I brought along. Instead of even a simple thanks or a nod, he crossed a line I didn't see coming. "Bet your dead daddy's real proud of you, money parasite," he sneered. My heart sank, and in that moment I could feel my blood boil. My whole face lit up with rage. I stood up, fists clenched, ready to confront him. But he jumped up too, not to face me but to bolt to the bathroom and lock himself in. My parents just sat there glued to the couch, doing their best impression of a wall. I followed him and started unlocking the bathroom door from the outside, taking my sweet time and taunting him as I did. "Hey Logan, did you know I came here to offer you a job starting at $50,000 today?" I said. Nothing. Just silence. "Well, if you'd rather spend your days jerking off to women who wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole all from your childhood bedroom you still haven't left, hey, more power to you." Still, nothing. At that point, I didn't even bother opening the door. I just turned around and walked out. Part of me hated that he still had the check, but another part felt okay knowing I at least tried to help him. Turns out Logan didn't really want the check. He didn't care about the job either. What he actually wanted was to take me down. I didn't know it yet, but my words had cut him deep. So deep that he decided to use them as fuel to wreck everything I had worked so hard to build. Roughly a week later, the weird phone calls started coming in at work. Someone would call, ask for me by name, and then immediately hang up once I answered. Then, out of nowhere, my inbox was slammed with confirmation emails for a bunch of sketchy subscriptions. Somehow, I got signed up for every adult site newsletter under the sun. And it wasn't even my personal email, they used my work address. I changed my passwords, figured it was some dumb prank, and tried to move on. But then my neighbors started giving me weird looks whenever we crossed paths in the hallway. That's when I found out someone had plastered flyers all over the condo accusing me of running some shady business out of my apartment. The flyers had my full name and my unit number printed on them, and I knew right then this had Logan written all over it. But how the hell did he even get my address? The only check I ever gave him had my bank's address on it, not where I live. I spent a couple days spinning out trying to figure it out. Then it hit me, my mom had asked for my address last year to mail me a Christmas card. She never actually sent anything, but clearly she passed my info along to Logan. Things started going downhill fast after that. I began getting random packages I never ordered, expensive stuff too, COD, meaning I either had to pay up or send them back. Then I noticed someone had keyed my car in the building's parking garage. And for 3 nights in a row, someone filed bogus noise complaints with the condo association. All of that was annoying, sure, but I could still handle it. What really pushed me over the edge was getting a call from my boss. He asked if everything was okay, clearly concerned. Apparently, someone pretending to be my stepbrother had called HR, saying I was having some kind of mental breakdown and needed checking in on. If my boss didn't know me better, that could have seriously screwed up my reputation. That's when I decided I was done playing defense. It was time to figure out what Logan was up to and shut him down. So I picked up the phone and called my mom for the first time in years, just casually asking how Logan was doing. She launched into a 25-minute rant about how he was between opportunities but had big dreams. The only part one actually cared about? He was still crashing at home, living in his childhood bedroom just like I suspected. Now I needed to figure out just how far he'd go and, more importantly, make damn sure he realized screwing with me was a terrible idea. The days of me being the quiet, polite stepsister were officially over. If Logan wanted a war, he was in way over his head. If he was gonna mess with my life, I had to be smart about how I responded. Going in guns blazing would only give him more ammo. That loser was probably counting on me to storm into my mom's house yelling like a maniac just to prove their little "she's unstable" story. No way. I had to think this through. First thing I did was lock down all my accounts, new passwords, 2-factor authentication, and I set up a Google alert with my name. I also called my bank, all my credit card companies, and even contacted the credit bureaus to throw fraud alerts on everything. The last thing I needed was Logan trying to open accounts in my name. Then I started working on protecting myself physically. I went to talk to the building manager, kept the explanation vague, just said I had a problematic family member who might stir up trouble. He agreed to notify security and make sure no deliveries were accepted without my go-ahead. I even picked up a cheap video doorbell, nothing fancy, just something to keep an eye on things. While all this was going on, I was trying to figure out my next move. There was no way I was just going to sit around and let Logan keep pulling this crap, but I also didn't want to stoop to his level. So I made a quick decision to head back to my hometown that weekend, not to confront him, just to gather some intel. I hit the road early Friday morning and parked a few blocks away from my parents' place. The neighborhood looked the same as always, same houses, same cracked sidewalks. I was just sitting in my car wondering what the hell I was even doing when I spotted Logan walking out the front door. Same filthy sweatpants he wore at Thanksgiving, now paired with a nasty-looking hoodie, real fashion statement. I sank down in my seat as he passed by, totally oblivious to me. He headed straight for the corner store. I figured I'd follow him, not too close, just enough to keep track of what he was doing. He bought a pack of smokes and a cheap case of beer, then started heading back. But instead of going inside, he veered off toward the side yard where this old shed was sitting. That shed was never used for anything except storing the lawnmower. But Logan had a key, he unlocked it and slipped inside. Stayed in there about 30 minutes before heading back toward the house. Interesting. I waited until both my mom and Frank had left the house the next morning before making my move. Saturday mornings, without fail, they always went to the diner for breakfast, a tradition we'd had since I was a kid. I figured Logan was either passed out or glued to his video games like usual. But it was the shed I was really interested in checking out. The lock on it was flimsy, took barely any effort to get open. Thanks, YouTube tutorials. What I found inside? Definitely not what I expected. Logan had turned it into some kind of twisted little office. There was a battered desk with an old laptop, a dusty printer, and stacks of random papers. Taped to the wall were pictures of me, some pulled from my social media before I locked it down, others from my work profile. There was even a map with my condo circled in red ink. It looked like something straight out of a bad crime drama. But what really made me stop was this notebook sitting there labeled Operation Payback. Wow. Real creative, Logan. I opened it up and started flipping through, and what I saw made my skin crawl. He'd written out everything he'd already done to screw with me, step by step, plus a whole list of new stunts he was planning to pull. Some of it was just petty, like ordering pizza deliveries to my place at 3 in the morning. But other parts? Way more disturbing. He'd listed the names of some of my coworkers and wrote little notes about how he was going to contact them. I took photos of everything with my phone, every page. This wasn't just some dumb sibling feud anymore. This was full-blown harassment. I carefully put everything back exactly how I'd found it and quietly slipped out, making sure to relock the shed behind me. As I drove back home, I called up my friend Monica. She works in IT security. She's been my go-to-tech guru for years. I gave her the rundown, skipping the messy family drama parts. Her first response? This guy sounds like a total loser. And she's right. But even losers can cause serious trouble. You need to lock things down hard, she told me. That night, Monica came over and helped me beef up the security on all my devices. She also had a few tricks for tracking the source of any future digital attacks. We ordered takeout and spent the entire night getting everything secured. While we were eating pad thai, Monica looked at me and said, you could just go to the cops with this. It's harassment. I shook my head. Not yet, I told her. I want to see what he tries next. Monica raised an eyebrow. You sure you're not playing with fire here? Maybe I was. But something in me needed to handle this my own way. Besides, if I involved the police, that would mean dealing with my parents, and I was definitely not ready for that circus. The next couple of weeks were oddly quiet. Almost too quiet. I checked my front door camera footage every day, but nothing. No strange packages. No creepy calls. Just silence. For a second, I actually started to think maybe he'd backed off. But then, while I was at work, I got a call from an unknown number. I knew I shouldn't have answered, but I did anyway. Hello? Is this Natalie? A woman's voice asked. Yeah. Who's calling? This is Jill from Credit Secure, she said. We've noticed some suspicious activity on your accounts. Looks like someone tried to open 3 credit cards in your name yesterday. My stomach just sank. I spent my entire lunch break cleaning up the mess from the attempted identity theft. Luckily, the fraud alerts I'd set up earlier had blocked everything in time, no real damage. But now it was clear. Logan was escalating. This wasn't just some messed up prank anymore. This was getting criminal. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Having credit problems, it said. Maybe you should be more careful who you piss off. I didn't reply. I just saved the number in a folder marked evidence. But now I was done being patient. I was pissed. This had crossed a serious line. The next day at work, I couldn't concentrate on anything. My mind kept drifting back to Logan and his pathetic little revenge plot. During my afternoon break, I checked my personal email just to distract myself. And there it was, an email from my mom with the subject line, "We need to talk about Logan." I opened it, hands shaking. It was short and to the point. Natalie, I don't know what's going on between you and your stepbrother, but he's been acting strange since your visit. Please call me. Mom. Well, at least she finally said stepbrother. Some things really do change, I guess. I didn't call my mom back, but I did start working on a plan. If Logan wanted to play dirty, fine. I could play dirty too. Just smarter. Step 1. I called the McDonald's where he used to work and asked to speak with the manager. When the guy, Greg, picked up, I introduced myself as someone doing a reference check on Logan. Said I was considering him for a job. Greg let out this laugh, like a real tired of the BS kind of laugh. Reference? For Logan. He chuckled again. Lady. The only reference I'd give that guy is to stay far, far away. He said Logan was the worst employee he'd ever had. Constantly late, left early, stole from the register, creeped out his female coworkers. And apparently they didn't even bother firing him. He got arrested in the parking lot for selling weed. They just never scheduled him again after that. Well, that definitely didn't match the jealous manager story my mom had been feeding me. I thanked Greg and hung up, then moved on to step 2. I called Logan using a burner number I'd set up just for this kind of thing. Yo, he answered. I changed my voice a little, just enough to sound unfamiliar. Hey, is this Logan? I asked. Heard you might be able to hook me up. It was a gamble, but based on what Greg said, I had a strong feeling Logan was still dealing. He paused. Who's this? He sounded cautious but curious. Name's Riley, I said. Ethan over at the auto shop gave me your number. I added. Said you could help me out. Party supplies and all that. There was a brief silence. Then he said, "Yeah, I got you. What are you looking for?" We made plans to meet that weekend at the convenience store near my parents' house. I hung up feeling a weird mix of satisfaction and nerves. Not because I was actually going to buy anything, I wasn't. I just needed confirmation that he was still up to no good. The rest of the week went by without much happening. I took Thursday off work and drove back to my hometown, checking into a no-frills motel under a fake name. I know it might sound a little paranoid, but honestly, better safe than sorry. Friday morning, I parked across the street from the convenience store and waited. Right on schedule, Logan showed up, looking around like he was already expecting something shady. I had a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses on, just another face behind a cracked car window. He paced around the lot for a good 15 minutes before pulling out his phone. A moment later, my burner phone started ringing. I ignored it. He called again, then again. After the third try, he sent a text. "Where you at?" I didn't respond. He lingered for another 20 minutes, clearly getting frustrated, then finally gave up and started heading back toward my parents' house. But he didn't go inside. He veered off and went straight for the shed again. I gave him a few minutes, then grabbed my phone and followed quietly. This time, I didn't go in. I stood just outside, near the side window, and started recording on my phone. Inside, I could hear him muttering to himself. "Stupid no-show. Wasting my damn time. Could have been a setup. Whatever. Gotta focus on the plan anyway." I heard papers rustling and then, "Nat won't know what hit her. By the time I'm done, she'll wish she never came back." And then I heard it, that chilling, unmistakable click of a gun being handled. I almost dropped my phone, but somehow managed to keep it rolling. "Should have seen her face when I mentioned Dad," Logan sneered, laughing to himself. "Always was a sensitive little bitch." That was enough. I backed away slowly, heart pounding, and got back to my car. The audio wasn't crystal clear, but it was more than enough to make me seriously uneasy. Was Logan just posturing, or was he actually capable of doing something dangerous? I wasn't about to take that risk. As soon as I got back to the motel, I copied the recording to my laptop and called Monica. "I think my stepbrother might actually be dangerous," I told her, trying to keep my voice steady. Monica didn't hesitate. "Define dangerous." "Like, I think he has a gun, and I think he's planning something." There was a pause on her end. Then she said, "Nat, you need to go to the police." "I know, but..." "No buts." She cut me off. "This isn't about family drama anymore. If you're genuinely worried about your safety, you have to report it," Monica said. She was right, of course. I knew she was, but I still hesitated. Going to the cops would make all of this official. That meant my parents would get dragged into it. It would turn into a big, messy ordeal. And then my phone pinged, notification from my condo security app. Someone was trying to get into my unit. The camera showed a delivery guy standing there with a big box. Problem was, I hadn't ordered anything. I immediately called the security desk at my building. "This is Natalie from Unit 413, I said. "I'm out of town and not expecting any deliveries. Please don't accept anything on my behalf." "Too late, ma'am," the guard replied. The guy said it was perishable and needed an immediate signature. "Your stepbrother signed for it." "My stepbrother? I don't have a stepbrother in town." There was an awkward pause on the other end. Tall guy, kind of heavy-set beard, said he was house-sitting for you while you're gone. He had a key and everything. I felt sick to my stomach. "That's not my stepbrother," I snapped. "That's someone impersonating a family member. He doesn't have permission to be in my unit. Please call the police right now." I hung up and immediately called Monica, who lived about 20 minutes away from my place. "Monica, Logan's at my condo. He somehow got inside. He has a key. Building security's calling the cops, but can you go over there? Just in case." "On my way," she said, no hesitation. While I started the long 4-hour drive back home, Monica kept texting me updates. The police had arrived by the time she got there, but Logan was already gone. Turns out the perishable delivery was a box of rotting fish he'd left on my kitchen counter. Classic Logan, immature and nasty. The cops took a report but said since nothing was stolen and the damage was minimal, there wasn't much they could do. They told me to change my locks and consider filing for a restraining order. By the time I pulled into my parking garage, Monica had already called a locksmith who was just finishing up. Despite her efforts to clean, my apartment still reeked of fish. I was tired, furious, and honestly kind of shaken. But more than anything, I was done being Logan's target. I need to end this, I told Monica as we sat out on my balcony trying to escape the smell. Not just stop him, make sure he never gets the chance to pull this crap again. What are you thinking? She asked, looking a little worried. Something legal, I promised. But something that'll actually work. The next day was Saturday. I knew my parents would be at their regular breakfast spot and Logan would probably still be sleeping off whatever garbage he'd been up to. Perfect time to make some phone calls. First, I reached out to a friend who worked at the DMV. I wasn't asking for anything shady, just wanted to confirm something. Sure enough, Logan's license had been suspended 7 months ago, unpaid tickets and no insurance. Funny, since I'd just seen him driving my mom's car the other day. Next, I called a college friend who's now a paralegal. She walked me through the definitions of harassment and identity theft in our state and exactly what kind of evidence I'd need to file a restraining order. Turns out I had more than enough. Then I called my boss. I gave him the short version and asked if I could take Monday off to deal with some family stuff. He didn't even hesitate. Said he completely understood. Finally, I called my mom. She picked up on the third ring, clearly surprised. Natalie? Is everything okay? Not exactly, Mom, I said. We need to talk about Logan. In person. Can I come over tomorrow morning? There was a long pause. I suppose that would be fine. Frank will be at work, but Good, I said. I'd actually prefer to talk to you first. Alone. I'll be there at 10. I spent the rest of Saturday prepping. I pulled together every piece of evidence I had. Photos from Logan's little Operation Payback shed, the audio recordings, the credit fraud attempts, everything. I backed it all up to the cloud and made physical copies too. If Logan had taught me anything, it was to be thorough. Monday morning, I got dressed carefully, nothing flashy, just a plain blouse and a pair of slacks. I dressed intentionally professional but not intimidating. I didn't want my mom to feel like I was storming in to attack her, even though, deep down, I blamed her for letting Logan get away with so much for so long. When I showed up, she looked nervous. It was obvious she'd made an effort, hair done, dressed nicer than her usual stay-at-home clothes. The house was spotless, too. It reminded me of how she used to panic clean before my stepdad came home from work. Is Logan here? I asked as I stepped inside. She shook her head. He left early this morning. Said he had something to take care of. Fantastic. That could mean anything from selling weed to keying my car again. I'd parked a block away just in case. We sat down in the living room, both of us awkwardly planted at opposite ends of the couch. She kept twisting her wedding ring, a nervous tic I'd seen since I was a kid. Mom, I need to show you something, I said, pulling out the folder of evidence I'd put together. Logan's been harassing me since Thanksgiving. It started out as dumb pranks, but it's gotten serious, identity theft, breaking into my condo, the whole 9 yards. Her face went through a cycle, confused, defensive, disbelieving, and finally, quietly resigned. He's been troubled, she said softly. Ever since you came back, he feels like you're rubbing your success in his face. Like you're trying to make him look bad. Mom, I gave him 15 grand and offered him a job, I said, my voice flat. How's that making him look bad? She didn't have a comeback. So I laid everything out. Photos of the inside of Logan's shed, screenshots of the credit card applications, footage of him inside my apartment, clear as day. With each page I handed her, she seemed to shrink further into the cushions. I don't know what you expect me to do, she finally whispered. I expect you to stop enabling him, I said. He's not a kid anymore, Mom. He's an adult and he's making choices, bad ones, that are hurting people. That are hurting me. And I'm done. I reached into my folder one last time and pulled out the paperwork I'd filled out that morning. This is a restraining order application. I'm filing it today. Logan will be legally required to stay away from me, my home, my work, everything. If he breaks it, he'll get arrested. That's when my mom started to cry. No sobbing, just quiet tears sliding down her face. He's my son, she murmured. And I'm your daughter, I said. And to my own surprise, my voice didn't even waver. But you've never protected me from him. So now I'm protecting myself. The front door slammed suddenly and we both jumped. Logan came charging into the room, face red and twisted with rage. What the hell are you doing here? He snapped, eyes locked on me. I stood up slowly, keeping the coffee table between us. I'm talking to Mom about your favorite pastime, harassing me. His gaze dropped to the paperwork spread across the table. Then he looked at our mom's tear-streaked face. Something shifted in him, like a fuse lit. Oh, so this is your plan? He barked. Come in here and turn her against me? After disappearing for years, you think you get to play the victim? You have no idea what we've been through. Logan, calm down, Mom said, barely audible. No, he shouted. I'm sick of her acting like she's better than us. She rolls back into town with her fancy job, her perfect condo, looking down on us like we're trash. I kept my tone calm and steady. I've never looked down on you, Logan. Not once. I tried to help you. Help? He scoffed, bitter and sharp. You left me here. With them, he said, gesturing toward our mom. You know what it's like being the only one they could criticize? The only one they could control? You got out and I got stuck with double the pressure. That wasn't what I expected him to say. And for just a second, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. But that still doesn't excuse what you've done, I told him firmly. The harassment. The identity theft. Breaking into my home. His expression changed, a rage melting into smugness. A smirk crept onto his face. Prove it was me, he said coolly. I pointed at the pile of documents on the table. Already did. The smirk cracked. He glanced down at the papers, then looked back up at me. So what? He sneered. You gonna call the cops on me now? If I have to, I said. He took a step toward me and I instinctively backed away. That's when I noticed the bulge in the pocket of his jacket. Was that the sound of him messing with a gun earlier? My mom had seen it too. Logan, what's in your pocket? She asked. He didn't answer, just stared me down, eyes locked on mine. You always think you're so damn smart, don't you? He sneered. Little Miss Perfect with her picture-perfect life. My life's not perfect, Logan, I shot back. I just put in the work instead of trying to drag people down. Worked for it, he snapped, his voice suddenly rising. The outburst made both me and Mom flinch. You got all the advantages, he went on. Dad always liked you more. The teachers bent over backward for you. And even after you left, he added bitterly, you had it easy, nobody expected anything from you. I stood there stunned. That didn't make any sense. Frank never favored me. If anything, he could barely stand to be in the same room. I'd always believed Frank didn't care for me one bit. He was cold, always critical, and acted like my existence was a personal annoyance throughout my whole childhood. It had honestly never occurred to me that his opinion might have changed after I left. Not Frank, Logan snapped. Logan spat. My dad, your stepdad. You didn't have to measure up to impossible expectations, he said through gritted teeth. You weren't the one he constantly compared to his perfect little stepdaughter after she moved out. Well, that was a twist I definitely didn't see coming. I glanced at my mom. She was staring off into space, avoiding both our eyes. Is that true? I asked her quietly. She let out a long, tired sigh. Frank was different after you left, she admitted. He kept saying how proud he was of how independent you'd become. He started wondering out loud why Logan couldn't be more like that. I almost laughed at the irony. All that time, I assumed Logan was the golden child. And it turns out ever since I left, he'd been stuck in my shadow. But still, none of that justified what he was doing now. Logan, I said slowly, watching his hand inch toward his pocket again, whatever went down in the past, it doesn't excuse your behavior now. This has to stop. Or what? He snapped. Or I go to the courthouse today and file the restraining order. And I press charges for identity theft and for breaking into my place. That's real jail time you're looking at, Logan. He pulled his hand out of his pocket. But instead of a weapon, he was holding my mom's car keys. Good luck proving any of it, he muttered. I'm out. Logan, wait. Mom called out. But he was already halfway to the front door. That's when I remembered what my friend at the DMV had told me. Driving on a suspended license is another criminal charge. He froze, his hand on the doorknob. What are you talking about? Your license was suspended 7 months ago, I said. I checked. Logan slowly turned around, his face a mix of rage and disbelief. You checked my license? He snapped. Who the hell gave you that right? Probably the same right you thought you had when you snooped through my credit history, I replied coolly. Difference is, I didn't try to tank your financial future. He looked down at the keys, then up at me, and finally over at our mom. For a second, I braced myself, thought he might hurl the keys at me. But instead, he slammed them down on the entryway table and stormed out on foot. Once he was gone, Mom and I sat there in silence for a long while. He needs help, I finally said. Real help? The kind you and Frank can't give him. She gave a slow nod. I know. We've known for a while now. But every time we bring it up, he threatens to disappear, and I can't lose another child. Her words hit me harder than I expected. Did she already think she'd lost me? I pushed that thought away, at least for now. You're not helping him by letting this continue, I told her. He's wrecking his life and trying to take mine down with him. What are you going to do? She asked softly. I picked up the folder with all the evidence and tucked it under my arm. That's up to Logan, I said. If he backs off completely, I won't go through with the restraining order or press charges. But if he pulls even one more stunt, I looked her dead in the eyes, I'm going straight to the cops. I started to leave, but my mom reached out and gently took my hand. Natalie, she said, voice trembling, I'm sorry. For all of it. For not being there when you were growing up. For letting things with Logan get this far. It was the first real apology I'd ever heard come out of her mouth. And honestly, I didn't even know how to respond. So I just gave her a small nod and carefully pulled my hand away. I'll let myself out, I said. As I made my way to the car, there was this strange sense of weight lifting off my shoulders. It wasn't about beating Logan or anything like that. It was because, for once in my life, I finally stood my ground. No backing down, no second guessing. Now the next move was his. What I didn't realize was Logan wasn't about to let it go quietly. 3 days later, I was at work when my personal phone buzzed, with a number I didn't recognize flashing on the screen. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. Hello, is this Natalie? The voice on the other end belonged to a woman. Yeah, who's calling? This is Denise, I'm with Westside Hospital, she said. Your stepbrother Logan's here in the ER. You're listed as his emergency contact. My stomach flipped. Is he all right? What happened? He's stable, but he was in an accident. He's been asking for you. I told my boss I had a family emergency. And rushed out, my head spinning the whole drive. Was this real? Or just another one of Logan's games? Only one way to know for sure. When I got to the emergency room, they led me to a curtained-off section, where Logan was lying there, pale and out of it. His right arm was in a cast, and there was a deep cut on his forehead. You actually came, he said when he spotted me, genuinely looking surprised. What happened? I asked, keeping my distance at the foot of his bed. Tried to cross the highway on foot, he muttered. Wasn't paying attention. He turned his head away. Got clipped by a truck. Why the hell were you crossing a highway? He gave a lazy shrug with his good shoulder. Was heading to a friend's place. Just then, a nurse stepped in to check his vitals. The doctor wants to keep him overnight for observation, she told me. Because of the concussion. Do you have his insurance info by chance? Logan instantly looked panicked. I told you I don't have insurance. The nurse glanced at me, clearly expecting something. I felt torn, despite everything Logan had put me through. Seeing him banged up like that sparked something in me. A weird sense of responsibility I couldn't shake. He was still the kid I'd grown up with. Someone molded by the same messed up house I barely made it out of. I could have just walked away. Part of me really wanted to. But instead, I pulled out my wallet. I'll take care of the paperwork, I told her. Can you give us a minute? I asked. Once she stepped out, Logan avoided looking at me. You don't have to pay for this, he mumbled. I know I can't pay you back. I'm aware. We sat there in awkward silence for a few beats. Why'd you even come? He finally asked, almost like he couldn't believe it himself. After all the crap he'd done, I actually thought about it for a second. Because even after all that, you're still my family, I said. And I needed to see if you were really hurt. Or just roping me into another one of your stunts. He almost cracked a smile at that. Fair enough. I leaned in a bit so he had no choice but to meet my eyes. This is it, Logan, I told him. My final act of kindness. If you ever screw with my life again, I won't think twice about burning it all down with whatever I've got. Got it? He gave a slow, quiet nod. Yeah, I get it. Good, I said. I'll cover your hospital bill. And give you one last shot at getting your life together. What you do with that is your call. I got up to leave, but he called out after me. Nat? I turned around. What? I'm sorry for what I said about your dad at Thanksgiving. That crossed a line. It wasn't a full-blown apology, but it was a start. I gave him a nod just to acknowledge it. And then went to find the billing office. I had no clue if Logan was really feeling sorry. Or just telling me what he thought I wanted to hear. What I did know was I was done playing the victim. Whether Logan changed or stayed the same, I'd be alright. I had my own life now. And no one, not Logan, not Mom, not even Franca, was going to take that from me. I paid the bill, left my contact info for the medical staff, and walked out into the sunshine, feeling for the first time like I was finally free of all the chaos my family dragged behind them. Whether Logan's revenge ended here, or this was just a temporary ceasefire, I was ready for whatever came next. Walking out of that hospital, I didn't know if I'd just made the dumbest move ever, or somehow gotten through to him for real. A part of me kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like maybe this whole thing was just another elaborate setup to get me to cover his bills. According to the doctors, though, his injuries were completely legit. The concussion wasn't too serious, but the broken arm was going to take several weeks to heal up right. I tried to push Logan out of my thoughts and shift my focus back to work over the next few days. I'd done my part, paid for his hospital stay, offered him yet another chance, and made it absolutely clear. This was his last shot. It was up to him now. Roughly a week after that hospital trip, I got a phone notification. It was a text from Mom asking if I'd heard anything from Logan. Apparently, he hadn't shown up at home after getting discharged. I told her I hadn't heard a word, and said maybe he was crashing with a buddy. She didn't sound too sure, but thanked me anyway. 3 more weeks passed without a single Logan-related incident. No stalking, no random junk left on my porch. No weird charges popping up on my accounts. For once, I started to let my guard down a bit, thinking maybe the accident actually woke him up. Then, on a Friday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I checked the feed from my security cam and froze. Logan was out there, standing awkwardly in a pair of clean jeans and a button-up I didn't recognize. His arm was still wrapped in a cast, and he had heavy bags under his eyes. For a second, I thought about not answering at all. But curiosity won out. I opened the door but kept the chain locked in place. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Can I come in?" He asked without looking me in the eye. "I just want to talk. Last time you were here," I reminded him, "you left a pile of rotting fish on my kitchen counter." He winced at that. "Yeah, I know," he said quietly. "I'm sorry for that. And everything else." I took a second to really look at him. He looked rough, skinnier, worn down, and honestly kind of nervous. Nothing like the arrogant jerk who'd been making my life hell for months. 10 minutes, I said, closing the door just long enough to undo the chain. "And I'm recording this, just so you know," I added as I let him in. Logan nodded and followed me into the living room, but didn't sit down. He just stood there, looking awkward, messing with the edge of his cast. "So?" I asked, breaking the silence. "I came to tell you I'm not going to be a problem anymore," he said. "I got a job. Actually, 2 jobs," he added. "Day shifts at a warehouse, and evenings working at a gas station." That caught me off guard. "Well, good for you. And I'm starting to pay Mom back for everything she's loaned me over the years," he said. "Starting with the car insurance I let expire." I raised an eyebrow. "What made you change?" He gave a small shrug. "I guess the accident," he said. Then he paused. "I had to sleep in my car for a few nights after I got out of the hospital. Gave me some time to think." "Wait, living in your car? Why?" "Frank changed the locks," Logan said flatly. "Told me I couldn't come back until I got my act together, and stopped harassing his stepdaughter." I was genuinely stunned. Frank actually defended me after all these years. "Anyway," Logan continued, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For real this time. What I did was messed up. You didn't deserve any of it." I honestly didn't know what to say. Part of me wondered if this was just another performance. But he actually seemed genuine. "Where are you staying now?" I asked. "Got a room in a shared house with a few other guys," he said. "It's not great, but it's better than crashing in the back seat of a Civic." And in spite of everything, I felt this tiny tug of sympathy. "Do you need money?" I asked. He shook his head quickly. "No, that's not why I came." Then he reached into his pocket with his good hand and pulled out a small envelope. "I wanted to give you this." I took it cautiously and peeked inside. It was cash, not much, maybe a few $100. "What's this for?" I asked. "It's the beginning of me paying you back," he said. "For the hospital bill and that check you gave me back at Thanksgiving." I blew through that cash like a total fool. I just stared at him, trying to wrap my head around whether this was actually happening. "Logan, I don't need." "I know you don't," he cut me off. "But I do. I need to make it right." That was the first time he really looked me in the eye. "I'm trying to put things back together," he said. "Not just with you, but with everything in my life." I placed the envelope down on the coffee table between us. "Take it. Use it to get yourself back on track. And if you're serious about paying me back," I added, "just keep doing whatever it is you're doing now. That would mean more to me than the money ever could." Logan looked like he wanted to argue, but instead, he just gave me a nod. "Okay," As he started to head for the door, something inside me spoke up. "You want to grab coffee sometime?" I asked. "Not today, but maybe next week?" The look of surprise on his face was almost funny. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be good." Once he left, I sat back on the couch, feeling more emotional than I expected. I wasn't foolish enough to believe that one conversation could undo years of damage. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, things could start to shift in the right direction. I gave Monica a call to fill her in on what had happened with Logan. "So he just showed up and apologized? Just like that?" she asked, clearly skeptical. "I know, it's strange," I admitted. "But he seemed different. There was something in him, he just felt more grounded, maybe even humble. People don't just change overnight, Nat." "It wasn't overnight," I told her. "It's been almost a month since he got out of the hospital. Apparently, he was even sleeping on the street for a while." Monica let out a long sigh. "Just be careful, okay? Don't let your guard down too fast." She was right, of course. One apology didn't magically undo the past. But still, I couldn't help feeling a little hopeful. The following week, I met up with Logan at a coffee shop halfway between my place and the room he was staying in. He was already sitting there when I walked in, nervously tearing up a napkin at a table tucked in the corner. We fumbled through some small talk. Weather, his new jobs, nothing too deep. He asked about my work and I gave him the short, cleaned-up version. I wasn't ready to get into the weeds just yet. Once we'd run out of safe topics, I finally asked, "So, how are Mom and Frank?" Logan made a face. "Mom's not thrilled I moved out. Keeps trying to convince me to come back. But Frank, weirdly enough, he's actually been supportive of me getting my own place." "Really? That doesn't sound like the Frank I remember." "Yeah, well..." Logan paused. "After your visit, things blew up. I mean, a full-on screaming match, bigger than anything I've ever seen. Mom had my back, believe it or not. Frank said I needed to face consequences. It got ugly." I felt a sharp twinge of guilt. I wasn't trying to stir up trouble. "You didn't," he said. "This was all simmering for a long time. Apparently, Frank's been going to therapy for a couple years now. Something about learning how to handle his anger better." Logan let out a dry laugh. "Would have been real nice if he figured that out when we were kids, huh?" I just sat there stunned. "Frank? In therapy?" "Yeah. His doctor warned him that if he didn't get help, he was headed straight for a heart attack. Turns out carrying around that much rage isn't exactly great for your body." We sat in silence for a minute, both letting that sink in. "Anyway," Logan went on, "I think seeing all the stuff I'd done to you laid out like that kind of woke them both up. It definitely shook me." The conversation gradually shifted into old memories. Some were decent, but most were rough. It was the first time we'd ever really opened up about what it was like growing up in that house. And I realized we'd both come out of it scarred, just in different ways. "You know what's really messed up?" Logan said as we were getting ready to leave. "I used to be so jealous of you for getting out, but I never once tried to leave myself. It's hard to leave when everyone's constantly telling you that you'll never make it on your own," I said. He nodded slowly, thinking it over. "Yeah, but I'm starting to figure it out now, I guess." We made plans to meet up again the following week. Driving home that night, it honestly felt like I was meeting my stepbrother for the very first time. Over the next few months, Logan and I built what I'd call a cautious friendship. We'd catch up over coffee every couple of weeks. Sometimes we'd talk, other times we'd just sit there in a quiet, easy silence. He was holding down both jobs, had finally opened a bank account, and was slowly but surely piecing his life together. I kept expecting him to mess up somehow or reveal that this whole new Logan thing was just a front. But that moment never came. He actually seemed committed, really, truly committed to turning his life around. Then, about 5 months after that surprise visit to my place, he sent me a text asking to meet up at our usual coffee spot. When I got there, he was already waiting, grinning from ear to ear. "Got promoted at the warehouse," he blurted out the second I sat down. "Shift supervisor now? Better pay, consistent hours." "That's great, Logan. Seriously, congrats." I told him. "And I'm quitting the gas station gig," he added. "Gonna use those evenings to study for my GED." I was honestly blown away. "Damn, you're actually doing it, huh?" He nodded, looking both proud and a little bashful. "Yeah. Turns out I'm not totally useless after all." "Who knew?" "I knew," I said, without even thinking. "That's why I offered you the job at the bank last Thanksgiving." His smile faded just a little. "Yeah, about that," he said quietly. "I was a real jerk back then. That job could have been a big deal for me. Well, I shrugged, maybe once you've got your GED, we can revisit that. My bank's always looking for good people. He looked up at me kind of stunned. You'd still help me get a job? After everything that happened? Look, I told him if someone's genuinely working to turn their life around, they deserve another shot. And it's clear you are. We spent the rest of the meetup going over what the GED process looked like and chatting about what kind of positions might be open at my bank down the line. It was strange planning a future that actually involved Logan in a positive way, but it felt good. Really good. That night, my phone rang. It was my mom. We'd been talking more ever since Logan's accident, but our chats were usually surface level. Natalie, she said, and something about her voice sounded softer than usual. I just wanted to thank you. For what? I asked. For whatever you said to Logan. He's doing so well these days. Frank and I are honestly proud of him. Hearing that stirred up a swirl of emotions in me. I didn't really do anything, Mom. Logan made the choice to change. Yeah, but you gave him that chance, she said. Even when you had every reason not to. She paused, then added quietly. And I know I wasn't always the mom you needed when you were growing up. I tightened my grip on the phone, not ready for where this was going. Mom, you don't have to. Yes, I do, she cut in. I've been seeing someone too. A therapist. She let out a nervous little laugh. Feels like everyone in this family is in therapy now, except you. Who says I'm not? I joked even though I wasn't. Fair enough, she chuckled. Anyway, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For a lot of things. And I really appreciate you giving me another chance. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just said, thanks, Mom. After we hung up, I sat outside on the balcony, staring up at the stars, thinking about how wildly things had shifted in under a year. From the Thanksgiving meltdown to whatever this strange new version of our family was becoming. 7 months later, Logan passed his GED with flying colors. To celebrate, I took him out to dinner. What I didn't expect was for him to show up with Mom and Frank in tow. Even more shocking? The night actually turned out to be nice. Frank was quieter, more reserved than the guy I remembered growing up with. And Mom? She was present. Really listening instead of just waiting for her chance to speak. At the end of dinner, Logan pulled me aside. I've got something for you, he said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a check for $15,000, the exact amount I'd given him back at Thanksgiving. Logan, you didn't need to do this, I told him. No, I did, he insisted. I've been saving. The promotion helped and I've been living real cheap. He grinned. Plus, I landed that entry-level job at your bank's downtown branch. Thanks for putting in a good word. You got that job because you earned it, I said honestly. Your interview scores were excellent. Still, he said, gesturing at the check, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And this? This is just the beginning. I'm planning to pay you back every penny from the hospital bills too. I tried to talk him out of it, but Logan stood firm. This isn't just about the money, he said. It's about owning up to my responsibilities. It's about finally being someone who pays his debts. Looking at how serious he was, I realized something. Logan needed to give me that check a whole lot more than I needed the money. So I took it, smiled, and simply said, thank you. A few days later, I was out having lunch with Monica when she asked me how things were going with my family. Honestly? Surprisingly well, I told her. It kind of feels like I've gained a completely different family, one I never thought I'd have. She gave me a skeptical look. You really think Logan's changed? Like, truly? This isn't just an act. I didn't answer right away. I gave it some real thought. I think he has. I mean, it's been almost a full year now without a single red flag. He's working steady, putting money aside, even talking about signing up for community college classes next year. Monica gave a slow nod. Yeah, rock bottom can do that to people. Sounds like that accident was his moment of truth. That and Frank kicking him out, I added. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is let them face the consequences of their choices. So, what now? She asked. I shrugged. I don't know. We just keep showing up, I guess. One coffee meetup at a time. That evening, I got a text from Logan. The manager at the downtown branch wants me to start training with the personal banking team, it read. This is all thanks to you. I replied right away. No, man. That's all you. I'm just glad things are going your way. He texted back almost instantly. Family dinner at Mom's this Saturday? I'll run interference with Frank, he's on this new health food kick. Apparently, kale is his entire identity now. I couldn't help but laugh out loud, then sent back. Sure, I'll bring dessert. As I put my phone down, something clicked. That old, dysfunctional family dynamic that had haunted my childhood? It was gone. We still weren't perfect, not even close. But each of us was trying in our own way. And maybe that was enough. Logan and I were never going to have the kind of brotherly bond you see in feel-good movies. There was just too much baggage, too many old wounds. But what we did have felt solid and honest, slow-growing friendship built on mutual respect and the effort to do better. And for the first time ever, I didn't just see Logan as my stepbrother. He felt like a real brother, one I could count on, not the one who used to make my life hell. Sometimes family isn't about who you share blood with or who raised you. Sometimes it's the people who sit down with you for the hard talks, who get a second chance and use it, and who choose to be better not just for themselves but for you too.